Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Tune in every week as we share important information to help you and your family live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, legacy and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
We're here with another episode of Black and White Market Chatter right here on Life Planning 101. Myself, Matt Ervin, and Aaron Kennedy with another exciting moment of trying to figure out where we're at, where we're going. We spent the last couple episodes talking about kind of the background and the backdrop that's created some of this froth, maybe mess that we're in, and
it's a great way to put it.
And we're gonna get started and see. Aaron, tell me what's gonna change.
Hey, I don't think anything. Didn't the House just push through about 1.8, almost $2 trillion worth of spending this morning?
Yeah.
I think we're at a point now that we're all learning our lesson, right? And we're seeing the cause and effect. And
have you seen a change? I haven't seen a change. You're watching different news, Aaron. Yeah, so
a little facetious there,
right?
But we're not slowing down.
No, they're not.
And things are not getting better; they're getting worse. Inflation is picking up steam, and I know we've spent a little bit of time talking about things to do, and I think we need to expand on that and the importance of it.
Yeah.
Back to the basis. You know, when we're looking at portfolio returns for a person. You know, I want to talk about how important getting real returns are versus nominal returns. Real returns is the actual, the feeling you get when you have returns on your money. So if my portfolio's made 10% and inflation is 5%, I have a real return of 5%. I can spend 5% more at a given time than I could in the past. So if you look right now, you know, inflation is almost 20%. I would put it at somewhere between 16 and 18%. So even if your portfolio is up 16, 18%, you've made nothing. You don't have a real return.
No, and the core, right? The core was up 1 full percentage point this last inflationary period.
It's insane. You know, we've had one of the largest increases in wages, but it's not as high as inflation. So people that needed that wage inflation the most are going the other way. They're still not able to buy as much goods as they were last year with a higher income. And that's problematic. That's very problematic.
Yep. You got to be able to buy more, and it goes back to the age-old thing. Jim says it best about groceries, right?
Right.
You know, Grandma used to spend $35 and have the sedan full of 8 to 10 bags of groceries, and now if you go to buy 8 to 10 bags of groceries, which bag are you going to put back?
Yeah.
It's pretty.
For $35, you're going to put them all back.
Right. You might get out of there with one rack of ribs and no sides, but that's it.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
Half a brisket, maybe.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just challenging for folks.
Yes, it is. And, you know, I would say the majority of the people that we deal with, and we deal with lots of people, but the majority are retirees. Mm-hmm. And they're living off the money that they've been able to save over time. So, I want to talk about how we can help those people put the same amount of bags of groceries and what our playbook's going to be, you know, and how we should be thinking of things. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, I think it's the number one way to combat inflation is by investing in commodities. And not just a full basket of commodities, but trend following commodities. And this is the important part, because when we have high bouts of inflation, people change their behavior. Going back to the groceries, you know, if I go in and I see a ribeye steak is $18, I got a family of 5, I may start second guessing that. So, you know, let's look at that strip steak, right. or what about pork chops?
Yeah. But that could be the things like, if corn's high, if feed costs are super high, people are going to be selling off cattle because they can't feed them.
Yeah.
And it could be things, if fuel costs are high, business travel is going to be less, because if I can't make 3 trips this week, I may only make 2 trips this week.
My dad was talking about the cost of fertilizer.
There you go.
Think about how much that trickles down. If people can't raise hay, what are the farmers or the ranchers going to feed their cattle? How are they going to get through the winter?
Right.
And to your point, they're going to start selling off because they cannot afford it. So what does that do to the U.S. consumer?
Right.
Ooh, beef is even going to go up faster than it has been.
Right, and but think about how many commodities you just touched on, and then we hadn't even touched on the real estate part of that. So to your point, you don't want to stay in one thing and just stay idle.
No.
You want to be
you want to be fluid and be nimble.
Right.
Another one we were talking about, is wood frame houses.
Oh yes.
When lumber was 1500. Right. I may be looking at steel buildings or using halite bricks, or maybe there's new technology that's coming out that you can use something completely different.
I mean, the 3D printing, I know that's not like totally on the market, but they're printing with like a concrete printer, whatever. So just different, thinking outside the box.
Right. So back to the point, if you're investing in commodities, you need to be able to move around a little bit, because I can promise you the consumer, which drives demand, is going to be moving around as well. They're going to go to the best price out there, or the best utility.
Right.
So there's number one. Let's find some trend following commodity exposure.
Okay, Aaron, I need to stop you right there. We need to take a quick break, and we're going to come back in right after this break from Black and White Market Chatter on Life Planning 101. And we're back with Black and White Market Chatter on Life Planning 101. We were just going over the need to bring some trend-following commodities. Aaron?
Yeah. Well, while we're on this, you brought up real estate.
Yes.
So if lumber's going up and steel's going up and copper, one of the ways to value real estate is replacement cost. How much does it cost to rebuild that building with all the wiring, with all the stucco, with all the sheetrock?
Right now it's about 3 times as much.
Yeah. So real estate is another area that can help with inflation. And it's an income producing. So, it's not one for one. Inflation goes up, rent goes up. There's a lag there, but it does help long term. The thing you have to really be cognizant of, what kind of real estate are you going to buy? Because whatever you buy can be beaten inflation, but by the time you have to sell it, it has to have the same use as when you bought it.
Economic value? Is that the right way to think about that? So you said earlier about shopping malls.
Yes.
That's one tip, but the repurposed ones that are turning into nursing facilities or healthcare facilities, things like that, still have some value.
Yes.
The ones that are 5 desolate stores and then 1 store that's still open, way less.
Yes, you got to be very careful. And I love that you brought up malls, because that's a big deal. Because malls used to be pretty dang expensive, and it was a big deal. Just imagine being a kid don't imagine, but I remember going to the malls in the 90s. And, we'd go there every weekend, and
just hang out.
Those things aren't the same.
No, it's different. It's way different.
Yeah. So if you bought a mall back in its heyday, it's worth something vastly different today.
Yeah.
Even if it's being repurposed.
Right.
So you got to be really careful, because things are changing. We don't need quite the office space. That's fluid at this point, but DocuSign, Zoom, all these other technologies are actually letting people work from home a little bit more. Right. Or maybe not even home, just wherever they want to.
Yes. Yep. And that's big to this next generation to be floating around. So
how's that affect office properties?
It sure does. But to the other side, industrial parks, warehouses for shipping and receiving, those things are highly sought after because
we're an
buying
Amazon society.
There you go, buying everything online, right?
So just so when we're talking, and this goes for everything, it's not just a blanket statement. There's always pros and cons of whatever strategy you take, but I think real estate is the easiest one to acknowledge and people can understand. You just need to be careful.
Right.
Not all real estate is created the same.
There you go. I like that. Not all real estate is created equally.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. But real estate in general. So go back to correlating that with the commodities. Yes, have exposure to that, but be nimble in how you do it. Right.
Yes.
Okay. Flexibility, nimbleness. Okay. Well, that's great. What else should we be looking at?
Stocks are a great way long term to beat inflation.
That's like the age-old thing, right?
Yeah, but you got to be careful there long term. Just look at today. If I'm looking at Caterpillar,
okay,
and they're able to sell their bulldozers and everything else at an increasing price with inflation, that's going to behave very different than a technology that is way, way overpriced, that's relying on super low interest rates and nowhere else to go. And that's pretty much the environment we're in today.
Right.
So you got to be careful. And no matter what the company is, the consumer changes. The consumer moves around and is nimble with what they can buy or willing to buy. So yes, they work long term, but on a day-to-day or month-to-month or even year-to-year, you can lag or not.
Well, we talk a lot about momentum, and we've done shows on that in the past where at different points in the cycle, you want to be in different areas.
Yes.
Value, quality, momentum, growth, different things. And so you have to be, I think the theme that we're just keep running into is we need to get nimble. And stay that way and be flexible in this, because when you get rigid in what you know and you think you know it and you have the answer, and I guarantee if somebody brings you the problem and the solution, you need to raise an eyebrow, right?
Yes.
You got to be a little bit nimble in that and say, what's going on here? What am I not asking? What am I not thinking of? And that would be something that this new age, right? The world shut down. So we were forced to think differently. Right? And so we need to, as advisors and as investors and consumers, and some of us producers need to keep that same nimbleness.
Yeah, I agree. I like it. Now, one of the places I do want to bring up is one of the places you do not want to be is completely fixed assets. And when I'm talking about fixed, I'm talking about cash and nominal bonds. Because think of the big picture. Our government has this huge debt problem. And the easiest way for them to fix that is to inflate it away.
That's right.
Inflate it away. I mean, let's go back in the numbers. Back in 2000, we had $5.6 trillion worth of debt. So from 2000 to 2016, we grew that 4 times. 2016, now we got $20 trillion of debt.
Wow.
And then the 5 years since then, we're at $28 trillion. And now get this.
Okay, you're blowing my mind.
$28 trillion worth of debt. Back in 2000, the government was bringing in $2 trillion worth of income.
Okay.
If we were keeping up, we should have somewhere around $10 to $12 trillion worth of tax receipts.
What do we actually have?
4.
Let's pause right here. We got to take a quick break. Our final break here on Black and White Market Chatter Life Planning 101. We'll be right back with you. We're back for the final segment of Black and White Market Chatter on Life Planning 101, and we just got the bomb of the government's not keeping up income versus debt.
Yes, and it's bad. And like I said, the easiest way is to inflate that debt away. So if we're sitting at 18 to 20% inflation, if we have another year and a half of this, boom, the dollar's worth 50% of what it was. Hey, their debt on a real basis just went from 28 trillion down to 14. Whoa, that fixed fast.
That fixed it fast,
Fixed it fast, but what happened to your cash and your bonds and your portfolio?
They did the same.
They did the same.
Cut right in half.
That is the government debt, And that now, 50% less buying power. And that's what we're trying to get away from. And it's difficult where prices are today, markets going haywire. One of the ways that we can stay safer in an investment portfolio is to use bonds and cash. So how do you wrap your mind around being safe, but knowing it's going to hurt you? This is what my dad calls going broke safely.
Right. Having that savings account that buys you less and less goods each year. It starts at 100, it's down to like 85 now. Pretty close. We're going to be buying 50%.
Yeah. Good. So what do you do? Inflation continues on. The Fed, if it were responsible, should raise interest rates. So that hurts bonds again. So, where we're trying to focus is we're trying to stay short, which means very short duration bonds or very short maturities. So we're not hurt by interest rates. And we're trying to buy an instrument called a TIP, which is a Treasury Inflation Protected Security. And those TIPs should adjust for inflation. So if inflation creeps up, we should be able to get more out of our bond.
So we got to be a little bit careful though with the inflation, right? Because
they don't measure it the same.
Well, government, just the plug here, right? So COLA, they're giving everybody a 5.9% raise because that's what they say inflation is.
5.9.
Right. So then they inflate the Medicare Part B premiums by like 14%.
Wait a minute, that's 14 is different than 5.9.
Well, it depends on whose math you're using. I think the government has a different calculator.
But that's the point.
That is the point.
That is the point. The smoothing techniques that the government uses to determine inflation for people that are on Social Security and some of these other programs is designed to help the government, not the people. That's why they don't use food. They say it's too volatile. Energy, it's too volatile.
Right.
Housing, it's too volatile. But we talked this last time.
Right.
Who on this earth doesn't use fuel, food, or housing? It affects every one of us, and the numbers are just wrong.
Food, water, shelter, right? You can't have...
We all have to use it, and it should be part of our inflation projections. So, while we can use TIPS, these inflation-protected bonds, they're not going to give the same protection of inflation that you feel. 6% in a zero interest rate world, that's fantastic.
Right.
But inflation's 18, I'm still going in the hole. My real yield is a loss of 12%. But it's better than a loss of 18 if that's where real inflation is.
Yeah, and so that recency bias really makes us feel comfortable. Or, we even anchor to times that 6% felt really good.
Yes.
But those are mental blocks that we have as investors, those biases that we can't seem to let go of. So we really have to keep things in perspective.
God, we're doing so good. We're learning. I love this recency bias. Behavioral finance this is really what drives our investing theories and our behaviors, period. So if we keep that top of mind, we can figure out why we're doing the things we're doing.
Right. Right. So we're protecting against inflation. Where are we going to find our growth?
Yeah. Well, just if we're going back to cash and bonds, one of the hottest areas now is the crypto market. Some of those have a fixed amount of supply, so it kind of takes care of the money printing problem. It could be another tool that you could use to try to combat the things that we're talking about. And honestly, crypto has been the number one producing asset in the history of the world.
Just the shelf life is short.
Time. So, any time that you're back testing something and you only have a couple of years or a couple of months, you better be dang careful with what you're doing. So it may be the best performing asset, but it's probably the most volatile asset out there too. But, hey, you go look in a carpenter's toolbox.
Yeah.
He's got things in there that he needs for certain things. He doesn't use them all on every project. So keep that in mind. These are just tools that we can use to fix a problem.
Right. We can't be ignorant to what's worked for hundreds of years, right?
Correct.
But we also can't be ignorant to the fact that there's something new developing that we need to be a part of. So we need to just keep our minds open, stay nimble. We talked about commodities, we talked about real estate, we talked about equities. We didn't touch on our options like this time, but we want to be talking to people about that. So please call us. We want to visit with you. And so, Aaron, I think we're getting wrapped up on our time here. And so any last regards or last comments?
No, I just think everybody needs to, keep smiling. We're all going to get through this. Probably the best piece of advice I could give is turn off the TV. Quit watching the news.
Right.
To me, anyways, it's very depressing. So one of the best things I've done, I started hiding my phone once I get home from work, and I sleep so much better. And it's nice.
You bet.
Gotta shut it off. Just pay attention to things that mean the most to you and your loved ones.
Right.
Hug everybody's neck. Love everybody, especially those ones closest to you.
All right. All right, folks, this wraps it up for this episode of Black and White Market Chatter on Life Planning 101.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services. If you have questions, you can email them to lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more Life Planning 101. The opinions expressed herein are those of the firm and are subject to change without notice. The opinions referenced are as of the date of publication and are subject to change due to changes in the market or economic conditions and may not necessarily come to pass. Any opinions, projections, or forward-looking statements expressed herein are solely those of the author, may differ from the views or opinions expressed by other areas of the firm, and are only for general informational purposes as of the date indicated. Securities offered through Calton and Associates Incorporated, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Smart Money Group LLC. Kennedy Financial Services and Smart Money Group LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by Calton and Associates Incorporated.